Hi everyone, and welcome to Yoga by M. This is a slow, gentle practice that's designed to help increase flexibility and openness in the hips. It'll be a great practice for equestrians, but I think you'll also find it helpful even if you're not someone who rides regularly. Before we get started, you'll want to make sure you have a blanket or a towel, and also maybe some blocks, or if you don't have blocks, you can just grab a couple of large books or anything you feel like is secure enough to kind of place your hands on and give you a little extra room in some poses. So hit pause if you need to, grab your stuff, and then I'll meet you on the mat. We're going to start by taking our blanket. You can fold it a couple times, but we want to have a nice long blanket, and then we're going to roll it. And once it's rolled, we'll place it towards the end of our mat, right down the middle. And then we're going to scoot our seat right up to the edge of the blanket. We're going to come into a reclined Baddha Konasana position, which is basically a butterfly position with our toes together, heels together. Then you can gently lay your spine down onto that blanket, allowing the knees to fall open to the side, allowing the shoulders to fall down towards the earth. If this isn't comfortable, you can always place some blocks or pillows underneath the knees to give you a little more support. And if you still don't find that comfortable, you can just bring your feet flat to the earth or stretch them down. I really like to start a lot of my practices in this pose though, because I have very tight inner hips, and this just allows them to gently start to open. So begin to settle in. You can close your eyes or just gaze softly up at the ceiling. And then we'll take a nice big inhale in through the nose and open mouth exhale. We'll do that one more time. Inhale in through the nose and exhale, let it go. Start to bring your attention into the room and onto your mat. Noticing all the places where your body comes into contact with the mat or the earth. Feeling grounded and supported. Start to become a little more present to your surroundings. Maybe by noticing whatever sounds you can hear in this space. Maybe taking another big breath in through the nose, noticing any smells. And again, noticing the texture of the ground, the mat, maybe even the clothing you're wearing. And if you find yourself distracted by any thoughts or any worries, maybe imagine yourself placing those concerns into a box beside your mat. They'll be there when you're finished. But for now, you can allow yourself to simply be present. As you breathe in and out at a natural pace, notice your belly rising with each breath and falling with each exhale. Mentally scan your body, starting down at the tips of your toes, Slowly moving your way up to your knees, your hips, shoulders, arms, all the way to the crown of your head. Just checking in, noticing if there are any parts that feel tight today, tense, uncomfortable. And noticing if there are any parts that feel relaxed, calm, open. Not judging, just acknowledging whatever your body is presenting with today. We'll take 2 more breaths here in this pose. And maybe as you breathe in, imagining that breath traveling to your hips, allowing yourself to find even more openness and softness. When you're ready to come up, gently take your hands to the outside of your knees and use them to help you slowly bring your knees back together, feet flat onto the ground. Take a breath here and then roll off to one side of your mat so that you can remove your blanket, maybe keeping it close by in case you want it later, and then laying back down. Just give your knees a little wiggle from side to side, releasing any tension in the low back that you might be feeling. And then bring both knees in towards your chest, maybe grabbing on top of the knees or the shins, maybe wrapping the arms all the way around to give yourself a little hug. You can give a little rock here from side to side, massaging the back. Then we'll start to move ourselves up into a hands and knees position. So you have a couple options for how to do that. You can roll to the side and push yourself up and swing your legs around. Or if you'd like to try a little rock back and forth, you can just gently rock 2 to 3 times all the way up to a seated position. Once you're here, we're going to move into a tabletop pose, which means we'll have our knees stacked underneath our hips, our wrists stacked underneath our shoulders, fingers spread wide. Then we'll warm up the spine a little bit with a couple of cat-cows. So we'll inhale, drop the belly down, lift the chin up for cow pose. And then exhale, tuck the chin in, arch the back, and press the earth away with the hands to spread the shoulder blades wide. Inhale, drop the belly down, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Exhale, nice big C curve in the spine, pushing the earth away. Continue to move 2 or 3 more times at your own pace, breathing nice and deep, connecting with your breath. From here, find a nice neutral position, belly button drawing in towards the spine to engage the core, nice flat back. Then we'll come up onto our knees, hands to our hips. I'm going to turn towards the camera so you can see me. We'll begin with our right leg and just shoot that out to the side. Now here might be a place you want to grab a block or a book and just place it towards the inside of your thigh. We'll begin by inhaling our left arm up and just gently bending over towards that extended leg, coming into gate pose. You can take this right hand down towards the thigh, down towards the block, or maybe all the way to the earth. With each inhale, try to lengthen the spine, and then with each exhale, bend a little bit deeper. One more breath here. And then as you exhale, bring that left hand down towards the earth, right arm comes up and over. Inhale, come back to the center. Bring that right leg back in to meet your left, and take a moment to readjust. When you're ready, shoot that left leg out to the side. Again, grabbing your block if that feels best for your body. Inhale the right arm up, and then exhale, lean over. As we practice yoga, we always want to check in with our breath. And if you find that your breathing is becoming shallow and fast, that might mean you're pushing yourself a little bit too hard. That's your body's way of telling you to come out just a little bit. We never want to force our body into poses it's not ready for, especially when we're working on flexibility. One more breath here. And then as you exhale, bring that right arm down to the earth, left arm up and over. Inhale back to the middle, hands to the waist, and step the left foot in. Nice work. I'm going to face towards the front of the mat again. Both hands down to the earth. Feel free to reset with another cat-cow here if you'd like. And then when you're ready, we're going to bring that right foot forward in between the hands. So this is a place that I always like to grab my blocks. I'm a little bit tight in my hips, so it's hard for me to reach all the way down to the earth. So you can take the blocks on a high setting, on a lower setting, whatever feels good for you here. And then take a moment to check in with the pelvis. So we want to have both of our hips facing straight ahead. We don't want one kind of leaning out to the side. Our hips are square. And then we want to make sure we're still kind of in a nice neutral position with the pelvis. So we're not in a cat tilt with our back arched. We're not in a cow tilt with our back arched. And we're not in a cat tilt with it tucked too far under. Just nice and neutral. Bringing our hands down to either side. And where you're probably going to feel the stretch here is in this left hip flexor. So if you're not feeling any sensation there, think of drawing this right hip back, engaging the core a little bit, and then moving a little bit deeper into the stretch. One more breath here. Then we'll start to wiggle the right foot out to the side of the mat a little bit and bring either the block or your hands both down on the inside of that right ankle. So this is going to take the stretch a little bit more into this inner right hip. If you're an equestrian, we're often using those inner hip muscles a lot as we're riding, maybe squeezing, using our leg aids. And so over time, those can become really, really tight, and they can limit the range of motion of our hips and our pelvis. So stretches like this are really great just to take some time to open them up and get some of that flexibility and mobility back in the joints. If you find your mind wandering, or if you find that that burning sensation getting a little too strong, just bring your attention back to your breath. Listening to your body, coming out of the stretch a little bit if you've gone too far. And making sure that this knee is not traveling over the ankle. We want to protect the knee joint by keeping it in line with the ankle. From here, we're going to wiggle that right foot back over to the left just a little bit. Take your blocks or books on either side of that ankle, and then tuck the left toes under, almost as if you were about to come into a lunge position. But we're going to sink our hips back instead, maybe moving those blocks as needed. Stacking our hips over our left knee, and then finding a little hamstring stretch here for the right leg. So as we inhale, we want to lift the chest, lengthen the spine, and then exhale, think of folding from the hips over the right leg. So the goal here is not to take the knee down to the nose, or take the nose down to the knee, because as you can see there, that causes me to round my back. Instead, I want to go only as far as I can by folding from my hips and keeping my chest lifted. One more deep breath here. Then exhale, begin to bend through that front knee again. Set the blocks off to the side. Place the hands around the foot and step the right foot back. Coming into our tabletop position again. Just take a moment here, maybe shake the hips from side to side. Reset the spine. Then when you're ready, we'll step that left foot forward in between our hands. Getting yourself set up with whatever props you'd like to use on this side. Rising up for a moment to check that our hips are square. Our pelvis is in a nice neutral position and our core is engaged. Almost thinking like we're trying to draw our hip points towards each other. And then slowly moving into that lunge. Making sure the knee is still stacked over the ankle. Hands can come down to blocks or down to the earth. Steady inhales and exhales. Remembering that the stretch here is probably going to be in that right hip flexor. So if you find that you're not feeling it there, you can try drawing this left hip back, engaging that core a little bit more, and then moving your front leg out a little bit further to deepen the stretch if you'd like. Once you feel finished here, you can wiggle the left foot out to the side a little bit and bring the blocks or the hands down on the inside of this left foot. So now you may feel a little bit more of a sensation on this inner left hip. There's actually over 20 muscles that cross our hip joints. So when we think about opening our hips or gaining flexibility in our hips, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of places that might be tight. It could be the inner hips, it could be the outer hips, it could even be related to hamstrings, to hip flexors on the front. So gaining that flexibility and mobility is a process, and we don't want to push our body too hard. And we also don't want to overstretch and lose any stability, because our hips are really important for supporting our spine, and they carry us every day as we walk, as we ride. So we want to keep a balance in our practice and not overstretch or overdo any of these poses. I'm going to wiggle that left foot back in towards the center a little bit. Tuck the back toes under, and then start to shift the hips back over that right knee. Inhale, lift the chest, and exhale, lead with the chest down towards the thigh, bending from the hips. Keep pulling this left hip back into that left hip socket to keep the hips square. And pause wherever you feel like you're at your edge. Not forcing yourself any further. Checking in with your breath to make sure that it's still long and steady. When you're ready, bend through that front knee. Set the blocks down to the side. Place the hands onto the earth and step the left knee back to meet the right. Stacking the wrist underneath the shoulders again. Taking one round of cat-cows. Then we'll come into a child's pose. So we'll bring our big toes together. Walk the knees a little bit further apart and start to sink the hips back. I'll show a modification in just a moment if this doesn't feel good. You'll sink the hips back towards your heels, stretch the arms out, and lower the forehead down toward the earth. Staying here for several breaths. If that version of the pose doesn't feel good, you can grab your blanket again. If you're feeling too much of a stretch on the tops of your feet, you can take the blanket right underneath your ankles so that your feet aren't having to stretch as much. Or if you're feeling too much sensation in your knees, you can take the blanket right behind the knees so that you don't have to bring the hips all the way back, but the blanket will support you wherever you fall. Feel free to get creative, grab some pillows. You can stack them underneath your chest or over top of your heels. Make this pose feel good for you. Whatever version you're in, we'll stay here for 2 more breaths. And gently move back into our tabletop pose. Now, our next pose can be a little intense, so you're welcome to repeat child's pose if you'd like. But if you'd like to try out Malasana, this is also sometimes called yogi squat. So for today, we're going to make this a more passive yogi squat and be supported by a block, maybe 2 blocks, or some pillows. Going to sit down onto that block and then take the feet out a little bit wider than hip width. We're going to let our toes point out to the side a little bit and make sure that we can sit up nice and tall here. You can stay right here or start to take your elbows inside of your knees, bringing them into a prayer position. Once you're here, think of pressing your elbows into your knees and gently pressing your knees into your elbows. Use that pressure to help you lengthen the crown of your head up towards the ceiling. Now, there's a couple things that might not feel comfortable if you're new to this pose. Some people might have trouble sitting down that far. So it's perfectly okay to take some extra blocks or pillows and give yourself a little more height. Some people also have very tight calves and ankles, and so you might find that your heels stay off the floor. So we can take that rolled up blanket again and place it underneath those heels. You can gently set the tops of your elbows on your knees. Once again, focus on lengthening the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. Often when we're in this pose in a more active position, you might hear instructors encourage you to engage your pelvic floor muscles by thinking of as if you were zipping yourself up into a pair of pants that were a little bit tight. But today we want to focus on a more passive stretch. So we want to allow those inner muscles to relax, allow our inner thighs to relax. So with every exhale, imagine softening and letting go and allowing yourself to drift a little bit further down towards the earth. When you're ready, slowly release the hands and bring the feet in a little bit closer together. Maybe just take a little sway from side to side to wiggle it out. We'll set our props off to the side. Now, most of these poses so far have focused on opening up our inner hips, but our outer hips are really important as well. So we're going to come onto our backs, keeping our knees bent. We'll come into a figure 4 stretch. So we're going to cross the right ankle over top of the left knee. Now, you might already be feeling a stretch in your piriformis muscle, which is along that outer hip. So you're welcome to just stay right here. If you'd like to take it a little bit deeper, you can begin to bring that left knee in towards the chest, maybe wrapping your hands around the left thigh or around the left shin. Wherever you are, keeping this right foot flexed and active, that's going to help keep the whole leg active so that you can protect the knee joints. Once again, not forcing your body, not trying to make your muscles take whatever shape you think this pose should look like, but allowing yourself to feel whatever version of this pose is best for you today. With each exhale, imagining the hips softening, nice steady breathing. Keeping our pelvis nice and grounded, so we're not picking our hips up off of the floor. We're rooting down to the earth and just moving from those hip joints to bring the knee in towards the chest. On the next exhale, lower the left foot down to the earth and uncross the legs. From here, bring the left ankle up and over the right knee. Taking whatever version of the pose feels good for you on this side. Remembering to keep that left foot nice and active. Our practice today, it's a little bit of a shorter practice. When we're working on flexibility, we really want to stay for quite a while in each pose in order to give our muscle fibers the chance to relax and open and lengthen. So if there are certain poses from this practice that you really enjoy or that you feel could be really beneficial for you, I encourage you to practice those several days a week and maybe set a little timer on your watch and see if you can stay in that pose, nothing too intense, but stay at a place that feels somewhat comfortable for you, maybe for a minute and a half or so. And over time, you'll really be able to see a difference in your flexibility. On your next exhale, lower that right foot down and uncross the legs. Of course, a minute and a half can seem like a really long time if you're new to yoga or maybe just don't stretch that often, so certainly start at a place that feels okay for you. This can be a great video to repeat 2 or 3 times a week. Let's bring those knees into the chest and just give a little rock here from side to side like we did at the beginning. And we'll take the arms out nice and wide and allow both knees to fall over to the right. You can always put a block or a pillow underneath the knees. Then we'll just come into a gentle twist by either gazing up at the ceiling or over towards that left hand. Twists are a really great movement to keep our spine nice and healthy. They help calm our nervous system. So it's a lovely way to end each practice. So inhale, bring those knees up to the center. And exhale, take them over to the left. Gaze up at the ceiling or towards the right hand. Check in with the quality of your breath again. Maybe noticing if it feels deeper or slower than it did when you first started practice. Inhale both knees up to the center. Give them a little squeeze, and then send both legs out straight down towards the earth. We're going to take our final pose, which is Shavasana, or corpse pose. And since this is kind of a feel-good, gentle class, feel free to prop yourself up with whatever you like. So sometimes I like to put a blanket underneath my head. If you have lower back pain, it might feel good to take blocks or pillows underneath the knees. When people think of yoga, they often think of the physical postures that we practice. And while that's certainly part of yoga, yoga is really the practice of training our mind, of releasing ourselves from suffering by calming the chatter of our minds. So this pose here, Shavasana, is the most important pose you will practice all day. We'll take another deep breath in through the nose and exhale, let it go. If any thoughts come into your mind for the next couple of minutes, I encourage you just to notice what they are without judging, and then allow them to float on by. Giving yourself these final moments just to be. When we're ready for this class to end, I'll wake us back up, so feel free to just fully relax here. stay in Shavasana as long as you like. But if you're ready to get up and continue with your day, begin wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes. Stretch the arms up overhead, reaching as if you were just waking up in the morning. And then roll over onto your right or left side into a fetal position. Breathing in a breath of contentment. Exhaling, I am enough. Gently push yourself up, coming into a nice, easy, cross-legged pose. Inhaling the arms up overhead and exhaling down to our heart center. Thank you all so much for joining me for practice today. I hope to see you back on the mat soon. In the meantime, I hope that as you move throughout your week, you continue to find greater connection with yourselves and with the world around you. Namaste.